I'd like to invite you all to this session on generative AI-driven transformation at scale in a digital native world. So generative AI has been the buzzword since in 2023 with the onset of ChatGPT, and we have seen quite a number of startups coming into the space. There are business problems which are solved by these new age companies. And so with that, without further ado, I would like to invite all my fellow panelists to this session. And I would like each of you to give a short quick introduction about each of you. And maybe I'll hand over the mic to Ajay.
So, good morning, and thanks for having me here. My name is Ajit. I'm the Chief Product and Technology Officer at Licious. Licious, I guess you all know, we are the biggest meat brand of the company of India. We use quite a bit of AI, machine learning in our current execution, which hopefully we'll be able to talk about. So, prior to this, I was running my own startup in healthcare. Before that, I was in fashion e-commerce with Myntra. So, a few experiences with AI in the past as well. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Shakti Goyal. Well, I work with Yatra Online. Yatra is the major travel portal. In the travel space, AI and data analytics, and especially Gen AI, has now come up in a big way. And hopefully, I'll have a chance to talk about some of the examples, some of the projects that we have worked on. I've lived in US for around 20 years. And I was in US at the time when data warehousing had just started, and now data warehousing is taking a big shape in India. So I've had a chance to go through the whole journey of the data analytics, ML, Gen AI, and AI in general. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pawan. I head the product and design in Upgrad. I think everyone is aware of the fact that Upgrad is a lifelong skilling partner for everyone out there on the globe. For me, I think I've come into this space for the overall 18 years into the product and business space. I think I feel privileged to be part of this discussion today. And we're also doing a lot of GenAI stuff in the EdTech space. Wanted to share the feedback and wanted to share the information to all this forum on what kind of initiatives we have been doing and what we have done in the past.
Good morning, everyone. This is Pranav. I am currently Chief Technology and Product Officer at Flipkart Health. I've been with Flipkart Group for almost 10 years. And Flipkart has been pioneer in, using machine learning, AI, and now Gen AI at scale. So I will share some of my, learnings in the journey of this whole AI transformation.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. This is Rishi Srivastav. I take care of the business and operations for digital natives in Exotel. Exotel is a customer-centric platform which connects business to consumers in an omni-channel platform. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So with that, we would probably quickly dive into our discussion topics for the day. So probably, Rishi, I will start with you. We would like to understand what are the advancements in technology that have made Gen AI possible today.
So there are multiple factors which is forcing us to go towards the Gen AI. One is today there are large chunk of data which means we need to quickly sort out the things. We need we need a quicker means decision-making power. The accuracy should be there. So for that, solving the large chunk of data, we need to move towards the Gen AI. That's very important. Then as a learning phase, in a way, if we see in the computer technologies, machine learning, or as a process, we say. So in machine learning, we do same things. Multiple iterations are done again and again up to the most important to the least decimal points. We keep on doing it and become more perfect. So that's very important. For example, AlphaGo, which was a computer program designed to play chess against itself. It practiced around 15 times when it was able to defeat the grandmaster. So these are the important things which we should always keep in mind while we are moving towards the Gen AI piece. Another thing, what we see, a deep learning. If today all the industries are specific and they have genuinely different skill sets are required to solve those problems, to learn each and every problem to be solved, we need to be trained in those specific things. For example, today in the banking sector, there are certain things which requires, there are the personal data which requires a lot of authentication again and again, so that the right things can be delivered to a consumer. That is there. And again, since there are means computing has increased a lot in today's world, there are higher algorithms which needs a lot of solving, immediate solving. So those things can be done only if we move towards the Gen AI piece.
Thank you. And Shakti, would you like to share your thoughts as well?
Sure, Kiran. I want to give a different perspective. I've been in the industry since 1990s, like late 1990s when I started my career. See, what I want to mention is that, what is AI? What is ML? It is nothing else but a bunch of mathematical equations that are fitted through the data, right? I mean, now we are talking about millions and billions of equations being used, and by fitting through the data, you identify the parameters, the constants of the equation. So see, we use machine learning a lot. We always talk about deep learning, a perceptron, which is the basis of neural network. That is the neuron. It was first proposed in 1950s. In 1980s, recurrent neural networks were proposed. In 1997 or late 1990s, LSTM, which is the long short-term memory model, came into play, and now it is heavily used for time series analysis. And then in 2013 and 14, GAN, Generative Adversarial Network, came into picture, which is the technology behind deepfake. So math was always there. Human brain was always there. Pen and paper were there. What we lacked was the computational power. And that is where we have seen a significant growth, which has made Gen AI really possible. And I'll give you an example. When Pentium 1 came out first, I think that was in 1993-95, it had 3 million transistors, and it was a big chip. Now you have 300 million transistors in 1 square millimeter. To give you another example, NVIDIA's GPU chip, H100, it has 80 billion transistors, right? That is the astronomical growth that we have seen in the computational power. As far as storage is concerned, I still remember that in 1997-98, when I was working in the first data warehouse, 1 terabyte of disk would cost $1 million. Yeah. How much is 1 terabyte now? Only $30, maybe $40. Amazing, right? Moore's law, what does it say? The number of transistors per chip will double every year or every 2 years. This has led to the significant computational growth. What we see is an increase in performance. At the same time, the cost has come down. And there's ready availability of these machines. I don't have to buy the machines. I can go and get the machines on the cloud. So the cloud technology did not exist in 1990s or early 2000s. It has come up now. All sorts of computers, all sorts of algorithms are available there. They have seriously contributed to the growth. The other thing is, if you look at Gen AI is using the already tested machine learning technologies. For example, if I want to create a 30-second video or if I want to create an image, I need to use the deepfake technology. Deepfake technology was developed before Gen AI came out. In order for Gen AI to work, tested ML technologies have to be available, and now they are available. The other major factors is the presence of large corporations like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, NVIDIA. They did not exist in the 90s or in the early 2000s. They were there, but not to the extent that they are now. So now there's a lot of money, a lot of funding. Billions of dollars are being spent, right, on developing these technologies. Just to give you a perspective, for ChatGPT 3.5, around 2,000 gigawatt hours of energy was spent. That is sufficient to provide electricity to one reasonable sized city in the US. 1 million gallons of water were used to cool down the system. I mean, the amount of computational power that was needed was not available earlier. The other thing is the increase in the network speed. When I started my career, when I was doing my research, I had access to a 14.4 kilobaud modem. And if I had to transfer a 1 megabyte file, it would take 5 to 10 hours. Right now, you can get 1 gigabyte per second at home. Within the networks, right, you can get 100 Gbps. Otherwise, imagine how will you transfer petabytes of data to a computer so that the GPUs can work on it. So there has been a significant increase in the network also. Computational power, network speed, the presence of all these big corporations. Now, NVIDIA recently announced that they are going to come out with supercomputers only for ML. And these supercomputers will be available for the companies, not for the government, but for the companies. These are the factors that have contributed in the growth of ML, AI, and this is the reason why we are talking about Gen AI now. Now, going forward 5 to 10 years, what I think will happen is once quantum AI becomes possible, the amount of data that a single computer can process would be more than the number of atoms in the entire known universe. We can't even think about the processing power the quantum AIs would have. This is the growth I think we are seeing.
Thank you, Shakti. That was very well articulated. So, Ajit, my next question is to you. So, Licious being a D2C brand and customer analytics is a key to your business, right? So, when did you realize the transformative potential of AI, and was there any key statistics or trends that caused you to realize that?
So I don't think there was one seminal point when the realization came. I think it's been a sequence of events, and I think like Shakti pointed out, I think it all started with simple artificial neural networks to convolutional neural networks that existed in early 2017, 2018, and so on. Personally, I've been using this extensively at my previous stints at Myntra and so on. We experimented quite a lot on the healthcare space as well. Things like LSTM that he mentioned about, I think are still being used extensively, especially for natural language processing and so on. But what it lacked quite significantly was the amount of context understanding. And this is significantly the problem, which means that the more inputs first of all, it only can process things sequentially, which means that these architectures or these models have difficulty understanding complex relationship between words that existed somewhere in the past in the context, right? And that was its problem. So its applications were limited, right? And I think the turning point really happened when the transformer architecture came about. I think the Google's paper in 2017, 2018, and the evolution of BERT after that. I think the biggest change, at least for us, would have been, I would believe, when OpenAI trained ChatGPT, the first version with 175 billion odd parameters. I think that was the largest ever model that they created on the transform architecture, which means that it had ability to understand and predict words with long context windows. It could understand complex words and so on. So the ability for these models to churn out extremely coherent results so happened. And added to that, they put a chat interface on top, which means that you and I could start interacting with these models, which was incredibly hard in the past for somebody beyond a data scientist to do. But I think these two steps brought the realization that, very simple tuning of these models can be done by clever prompting. And I think that changed the way in which we interact with such models. I remember the first time ChatGPT came, I almost dismissed it, saying that it's going to be another BERT. The fat is going to fade. I was so wrong. I think it was 3PD3, then 3.5 Turbo came, and now it's 4. Soon there'll be 5. And the kind of stuff it's doing, it's just mind-blowing. So today I can do a lot of inciting just by feeding it data and giving it prompts. I'm amazed at the results that it gives me. So I am now doing a lot of analysis by myself without having to rely on data analysts anymore. So I think this was the realization. And then of course, you now try to figure out if there are obvious use cases that you see that really fits, this architecture, this model, and quite naturally, a few things automatically pop up. One of them being, of course, the customer support use cases, which is quite obvious because these are very simple, straightforward questions that consumers ask. There is a pattern to it. You can read now millions of, let's say, hours of recordings of past information, feed that into a speech-to-text model, get analysis out of that. You can create documents that can actually feed into the GenAI models as vector documents for RAG and other techniques that you can use. We are actually getting pretty accurate results by tuning these models to generate very specific answers to questions, and also limit the models from saying anything else beyond the domain that it is trained for. So I think that has been excellent. Two, there are a lot of use cases internal facing where we believe there is a huge potential for these models. Something in the areas of creative and content writing, I think we use it extensively. Two, in terms of using analytics and insights. You won't believe the amount of things that it can churn out if you prompt it right with the right data sets and so on. So these are areas where we use it internally. We are also running experiments to try to figure out if you can actually ask very specific questions about our data sets, and we have these models crawl our data models and be able to generate insights from the data. Forget about just data pulling. I think it can do a whole lot of things. So both internal and external use cases exist. We are not close to rolling any of this into production yet, but experiments currently are extremely positive, right? So I think these were the steps that happened that sort of changed the perspective and what you can actually use it for. Now you can find use cases after use cases. You could pretty much use it for everything around personalization as well. It just depends on how you construct the inputs to these models and so on.
Thank you. Pranav, hello. Pranav, I would like to ask you, what are the challenges that you've seen in implementing GenAI at scale in your organization? What are the typical challenges, issues that you've seen in your organization?
Yeah. So I think there are 3-4 themes around it, right? Number one, the technology has just come, so it is not yet in the space where you can really leverage it for the scale. So let me give one. So I will talk about 3-4 things. One is that, the impact on the consumer, what it can solve, what it cannot. The second part is the technological challenges, right? And the third is, in general, how do you build a solution around it and the challenges around that, right? I think the first one is from the consumer perspective, right? Let's take a very simple example, and I will take an e-commerce example, right? You recommend this stuff, right? Whether it is an algorithm or whatever, you say that, hey, this guy will buy this one or potentially will buy this one, right? Technically, you can recommend millions of stuff, and if it doesn't buy, that recommendation has no impact, right? So your recommendation has to have some impact that, within next 5, customer will click something or buy something, right? Because this is a very probabilistic, outcome you are presenting, right? And the most important piece is that the search algorithms have solved this intent problem to a very great extent, right? Today, you do not struggle with Google in general, right, in your search, right, from the user perspective, unless you have a very non-contextual, very broad searches. Show me the sari for a particular occasion, right? And that is where, the GenAI can have a much more contextual inputs and so on. So the point I'm trying to make is that, the ROI and the use case needs to be really thought through, right? So I think that is point number one. Point number two, what it opens up, and I think in the country like India, right, where there are 3 things. We talk a lot, we don't read, right? So somewhere the different form factor, see what and as a panel also and in general, we are seeing chat GPT. I think to me the most interesting piece chat GPT has done beyond all this is that they gave us the bot, the form factor, right, and the prompting, and then everyone is stuck that, hey, there is a bot, an agent, and I will talk, or I will chat, right? But I think in the country we have to figure out a different form factor, different mode of communication that will be required, right? So that the second part of the Indians are that we need summary, right? We can't read, we can't listen for so long. So the summarization is another important pieces, right? And these are the use cases which are not working at a scale at this point in time. There's a lot of hallucination. So I think that is point number one. Point number two is the whole technology itself, right? Whether it is an API, whether it is a long form, whether it is a tokenization, they are not ready for large scale outputs, right? There is a limitation of API, there is a rate limit beyond a point. There are limits of the token. It loses the context if you have a multiple conversation. So people are still thinking that it is a replacement for search, right? In search, generally you search once and the second time you filter and then you are done, whatever you wanted. When user wants to converse, they will have at least 5, 6, 7, 8, right? Continuation, tell me this, oh, what happens if this happens, and so on. And it loses the context at this point in time. There is an investment required to fix this. It's not that it cannot be fixed, investment required to fix this. So I think that is the second piece, right, from the pure technology perspective. And I think whatever data we can have, the compute expenditure is 1,000 times or multiples of that higher than the typical search, right? So I'm sure Google search would have costed X versus this must be costing some multiple thousands of X, right? So it is, the Moore's law has to still play out in this space. So I think that is the second piece, right? And of course there is a shortage of GPUs and so on. So building any production grade scale is pretty expensive, and justifying ROI is also expensive. I think the third important piece is, the control of the output, right? So whether it is lawful, whether it is ethical, whether it is robust, right, output. This requires a massive investment, both in terms of data, in terms of governance. And I think that is still evolving, whether it is a media, whether it is a text generation, video generation, any form factor, right? All these needs to be set up. So of course there are these components, but I think in nutshell, the most important piece is that, it will be very difficult to justify ROI at this point in time. Unless you have R&D budget, you want to invest for next 2 to 3 years, because this will require not only computational resources, it will require your data sciences resources, you have this governance resources and so on. So that's my point.
Thank you. Pawan, what's been your experience?
I completely concur what Pranav has said, right? But I'll add some more color on top of it, right? I just wanted to filter these things into an easy, understandable format for the audience. The first thing is like data quality and availability is what the primary factor that we have today, right? See, data is a fuel for any AI model, right? And if you don't have the right data, if you don't feed in the right data artifacts to the model, your output is not going to be like a good outcome that you want to see. So your data should be like fresh or complete or unbiased, you can call whatever it is. So whatever the input you give to the model, and it has to be like the response needs to be in a very good style, which can be in a consumable fashion. The main problem that the industries are facing right now is the lack of data availability, which is fresh in nature and which is vast in nature, right? The second key point, I think Pranav touched it, right? The interoperability and compatibility of adding what are the GenAI solutions or conversational AI solutions into your ecosystem. All the companies that are there in the market currently are in a mode of FOMO, where they get a pressure from the board or from the investors or from the management committee saying that what AI solutions you have. They don't even think whether AI is a really valid for your sector or not, but they want to have AI solutions in the system. So this interoperability and compatibility is going to play a major role and kick back the technology heads or the product heads in the companies, right? Because when the systems are not talking together in the same language, it's going to be a big problem, right? It's like you're playing a cricket with a hockey bat, right? It's very problematic thing. You can implement a GenAI solution on your IBM mainframes, which doesn't even understand if the data is coming from that, right? That's the second key thing which we have been seeing a lot of problematic things in or issues in the GenAI stuff. So the third thing, again, the cost and ROI is a very big impact thing. It's okay to start with implementing any AI solutions or AI competency in any of the company, but you need to ensure that you have a right skill, right expertise in order to continue that, maintain that, and bring in a solution for that respective sector or respective technology space. That's going to be a major uplift. I'm also hearing that companies are also adding chief generative officer these days, right? In order to go with the trend, right? So there is one more CXO level coming into the space, which is like a good for the community, but it's going to be a very expensive in nature in order to maintain that one. One more thing that we have been seeing is bias and fairness. It has been identified that it's like your friend, right? Your friend always saying that, yeah, it's good, you can go ahead and do it. But the broader picture and the boundaries that you don't have for the model, I think it will not able to tell you what are the pros and cons, right? That's one of the key area where there's a lot of problematic thing. The last thing which I want to touch base is on the legal and regulatory things. These are very important for any sector and any company, or when you operate in a tight bounded legal protection space, right? So these models are not up to date in terms of alarming you in terms of the legal updates, because legal updates and regulatory compliance changes on demand, which even we don't know, right? So you have to be very careful when you leverage your models in terms of these areas where you don't have the pitfalls and painful points. Yeah.
Thank you, Pawan. And Shakti, with ChatGPT coming in, right? We have seen a number of players in the market. Right? Everybody has jumped into this generative AI bandwagon. But what do you think? How practical is it to build production-ready GenAI applications?
Sure. I think Pranav has covered a lot of it. I'm actually a real practitioner, a user of GenAI, where we build algorithms using GenAI, and have used different models from OpenAI, whether GPT 3.5, Da Vinci, version 2, version 3, or it's from Google, where they have the whole Vertex suite of products, or they have, I would say, Palm 2 suites of products. See, what I found is that we put in a lot of effort, we build the model, but when we ask questions at different times of the day, different days of the week, we get different answers. That is hallucination. That, I think, is one of the major problems, right? So if I ask like ChatGPT to write a poem, to write a story, fine, like it will do it. And like we all say, wow, because we had never seen this before. But now when we try to bring it to production, things get limited. I have tried to generate images, but sometimes the images will have two right thumbs. That I've seen practical, right? So if the marketing team has to build a marketing material, can they really rely on these LLMs, on GenAI? If you look at the face carefully, you will find that the eyes would mismatch, or there's something wrong with the ears, right, of that image. So that, I think, it is not very accurate, not very precise yet. And the other thing is the limitation of the number of tokens, the information via prompt engineering that you can send to these LLMs. They're limited to like 2,000 tokens, and I think each token is 4 characters. So it's limited to around 8 to 10,000 characters. If I want to build a conversational chatbot, right, that chatbot has to remember what the previous questions asked were. So every time you do that, you have to send the entire context, that entire text to GenAI to get the response to your question, right? And the size of that prompt will keep on increasing, and at some stage it will stop responding. That is a huge practical problem. And then they see the other option is that you don't have to use the RAG technologies. What I'm referring to is RAG, kind of, which is a retrieval augmented Gen AI, where you don't have to train the model, use a trained model. But you can now, like you got platforms like Mosaic ML, I think it was recently acquired by Databricks, which will provide you a platform where you start with a template, right? A template model, which could be a 1 billion parameter, 7 billion parameter, 30 billion parameter models. And then you train that model with your data. That is also an option, right? But that is very expensive. Right? If you've got deep pockets, if you have a few $1 million to spend on training that model, the amount of horsepower it needs, the GPU power it needs, that is tremendous. And I think that is what is, at this stage, preventing things from becoming really practical. But as I have learned from experience, that things will continue to improve, right? All these things will become possible. The OpenAI has come up with ChatGPT-4, which I think is rumored to have around 100 trillion parameters, with a T, not a B. But ChatGPT, this GPT-4 is not accurate as GPT 3.5. So it means, so what is also saying is that if you have a complex model, that doesn't mean it's right. You can start with a very simple model, and if it can answer your queries, then you should be happy with it. But that still doesn't exist to make it really production ready.
Thank you. So, Pranav, would you also like to share your thoughts?
Sure. I think Shakti has covered most of the points, but I will give you one or two examples. Number one is that, if I take Flipkart as an example, right? We have millions of consumers coming to the platform every day, and there are billions of queries, right? So first of all, if I have to make anything productionizable, you see the cost which we will incur. But just to give you an example, and we don't do too much of publicity, today in all properties or almost all properties of Flipkart, the GenAI led conversation is live, right? So in Flipkart it is Flippy, in Myntra there is a very nice search. You can say that, hey, I have watched Top Gun and I want the dress which the actor has worn in that, and it will give you all the possible options. If you go to health, you can ask a lot of questions about health and you can understand your prescription very well. We don't do too much of marketing. One is that all these are like experiments. Number two is that if these billion queries start coming, then you can see the impact on that, and then the issues related to this hallucination and so on. I think that is one part of scaling and making it productionizable. I think the second important point which he mentioned, and I believe this is how the differentiation and the scaling will happen, it will go vertical. So everyone would like to train in their own data. So RAG or the human factor, then kind of retraining, testing, and so on, right? Those will be the way forward, and these will take its own sweet time to make a very robust, unbiased model, right? And it's a human tendency that if the machine does something, it has to be accurate. But if human does something, human can make an error. So if you have a small kid and you are asking some 5 times 6 time, I'm sure after 2-3 times, he will say 30, and he will also say maybe 20, 25, and so on, right? The hallucination happens in human also, but from machine you don't expect that, right? And which will require a massive investment and massive testing. So I think it will take time. There will be inflection point at some point in in next 1 or 2 years. I think the third important piece is the infrastructure management, right? As he said that there are trillions of parameters on which the model is trained, and then you do the short versioning of training, right, in simple English, based on your data. Basically, you reduce the feature, you reduced the compute on that, but that itself is pretty expensive, right? And then you have to build a infrastructure for inference, right? Because inference doesn't require those super heavy GPUs, right? And what does it mean? So that is point number one. Point number two, you don't use only one kind of LLMs, you will use multiple LLM models, right? And there are open source models, they are very good in many cases. So you need a model garden around that. Right, what does it mean? That you have to also look at the way you have been managing your PaaS especially, right? And modernize it to use this. All this will take its own sweet time. And as I said that, unless you are a rich company, you have budget, right? It's an expensive affair at this point in time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, thank you. And so, Pavan, my next question is to you. So, we're all, almost everybody is scrambling to get into this GenAI bandwagon. So, in your organization, what are the, how do you distinguish the implementation, GenAI implementation, as compared to your competitors? And are there any ROI figures that you can share, any specific matrices?
Good question, Kiran. So now I talk about some of the benefits that with the AI, right? The one thing is automations are the ones which we are strongly leveraging. Improving the operational efficiency is the second thing. The third thing is enhancing the customer experience. And the last thing is what? Last two is, one is data-driven decision making and the personalizations for the users. Now, automations is a key area where we have been focusing a lot in terms of using these AI solutions to reduce the manpower to an extent where we can. And we're seeing good incremental benefit of roughly around 20% of improvement in the effort of a person. So you can calculate that respective, the breadth of, if you have 100 people, you have 20%, you can have a 20% more effort coming into the picture, right? The second thing is improving the efficiency of the operations is like leveraging these LLMs in order to give the power to the sales makers, because we do some kind of a sampling in terms of how do they really talk to the customers. We have the sales script and then convert the conversation into the script, marry these two, and then get the rating for the respective script, and then give the data back to the sales leader saying that these particular sales cohort is doing a fantastic job and these people are lacking. So they get to know the kind of the quality of the conversation that are happening with the customer, and then use them for the next set of trainees in order to showcase which are the good quality calls that are coming in, and then leverage them for the future sales, right? That's improving the operational efficiency for us. Personalizations is nothing but whenever the user comes to our ecosystem, it's a lifelong journey for them. They spend more than 12 months, 18 months in the products which we have, the immersive learning experience. So there we are trying to leverage the AI models in order to be like a training assistance to the learners, where if they get stuck, they don't need to wait for a help agent to come them. Directly they can talk to the bot and get the answer which they want. And then we're also bringing some niche features into the learning experience and also into the sales efficiencies, like a tireless assistant for you. Something like you get stuck, you want to revise some concept, your assistant will be able to help you. Auto grading assignments, adaptive learning, personalization learning, predictive analysis to them. So these are all the experiments where we are doing to improvise the CSAT score, the NPS score, and ensuring that the people are comfortable with the brand, and then they're trying to be stickiness to the brand, and then impact with the repeats and the referrals. So net to net, we are seeing 20% in the operational efficiency, and also we have seen the NPS scores are ticking up from, the CSAT scores are ticking up from 4.4 to 4.6-ish, somewhere like that, which is a good sign for us by having these solutions implemented in the system. Yeah.
Thank you, Pavan. Very well articulated. So, Rishi, we have seen. So we have this saying: with great power comes with great responsibility. And especially with new technology out there, there is always this concern about ethical considerations about data security and privacy. How are you addressing it today?
So I'll answer this. There are two aspects what we see as a company. If we work as Exotel, if we are working on a privacy or a private data, then we keep there should be a minimum identifier when it comes to a personalized data, like your phone number. We need the people who are working on it should not be readily available to see it, or it should be an encrypted way, or there can be a number, a virtual number, which can be assigned to them so that they can take it at that point. This is there. Then when it comes to the say privacy or something to do with the data security, then we are trying to do a lot of things. There are being robust security measures also taken when it comes to measuring the data on day-to-day basis. Also, a lot of audits are also done to see that these preventions are there in place. But if you see from an industry perspective, I would say this is still uncapped, or there is no right answer to it, because the regulations, the regulators, or even the industry practitioners, they all have to do a right governance mechanism over it. If you see, even from a perspective of a privacy, the best suited governance mechanism in the world right now is the GDPR. But if you see it from the India's perspective, we're still trying to build it across. We have a DPDP which has come, but still the things are not clarified. How will we do it? And when it comes to the copyrights or anything to do with it, it's not clearly depicted. For example, if you use a Delhi AI, where we do a picturization, I see a person riding a horse, I do envision it and then draw a picture. But if you take it to the somebody who has the copyright of it, it's not clarified. That's always there. So yes, there are ways to do it. As an organization, we have to do the ethical practices. We need to have more diverse data than having a biasness, because because if I take a person, 10 people in my company for specifically, they will have a similar vision. But then that data or the right thing, the thing which we are concluding out of it, it is a biased. Those things needs to be there. Then another way to look upon it is that when we are going towards the means people means in the apart from the age, every data should be appropriate for a age specific this thing. Like children, they are trying to use the AI for some purpose. Then there should be some sort of a guidance mechanism where it should be shown what is right and what is wrong, or there can be a parental control. But parental control, still, it's not the right way, because then they will not learn what they are supposed to. So those are the things.
Yeah.
So it's a multi-faced thing.
Yeah. Thank you. So, and Ajit, I would like to ask you about about the impact of AI on the workforce, because generative AI, as World Economic Forum puts it, there could be 85 million jobs that would be lost by 2025, as well as new about 97 million jobs that will be created by 2025. That'll be, so you might, the implications are you might want to reskill your employees. So how do you go about doing that, Ajit?
So honestly, I think it is a little too early to jump on that kind of a thinking yet. I think, look, Gen AI, the models that are there, etc. I think is a new playground that we've been given, right? I think it is still in very early stages of exploratory, let's say, innovation at this point. There are some obvious use cases where you can employ it, and like Pawan was also mentioning, that you would get some operational efficiencies in certain areas if you use it right. Whether it is Gen AI or intelligent systems that you put in place, I think it's a choice that you make, but nevertheless, there are possibilities of efficiencies that you can gain with classic machine learning, intelligent systems, and so on. When it comes to Gen AI specifically, I think it is, look, it is important that every, especially people of the tech background, really understand what it is, get their hands dirty with whatever they can do, understand what the models are doing, what are the possible use cases that might emerge in the future where you can deploy this and so on. So understanding AI, the foundations of it, its capabilities, I think it's a very important thing for a lot of people to do. This might open up new possibilities of doing things in the future. I think that's the power it sort of gives you. So we do have, training camps, boot camps that we have now set up in place for people to just get exposed to this in the first place. I think it is about seeding these thoughts in the organizations first, as opposed to saying, you know what, it's going to replace jobs yet, and so on and so forth. The key thing from that study is also that there are 97 million new jobs. I think it is about, see, what this toy is going to be in the future, I don't know. But if we were to look at other trends, it would reach a certain level of maturity and use. And I think at that point in time, it is quite likely that all of us will have to use some form of it in our day-to-day lives, right? The ways of doing things. So I think that is important. How do you integrate AI, integrate generative technologies into everyday activities that you do is going to be key. And for that, this understanding of this new platform of GenAI is important. And I think that's the way to look at it right now, as opposed to anything else. That's my view.
Very well put. And maybe Rishi and Pawan, can you also share your thoughts on that? How are you doing it in your organization?
No, I will try to give some generalized inputs over here. The one is like, be conservative whenever you implement some solutions, right? Do always experiments in order to measure the data, what's your experiment. Always have a right ROI to be calculated back into the stuff what you're doing in your company, right? Don't go with the FOMO saying that, hey, I have to implement something, I need to do it, right? Think about the necessity of that, and then see whether you have the real expertise. But what we are doing is like, we are having a small tiger teams in each of our verticals, like acquisition, there is a tiger team, order management and payments, we have a tiger team. On learning experience, we have a tiger team. So these tiger teams go and tackle the problems by implementing the GenAI solutions in the respective spaces. And we do a lot of experiments on a month-on-month basis to understand how the outcomes are really coming in, and then probably take it to a large scale. That's my humble input for everyone.
Thank you. Rishi, would you also like to add a few words?
See, the thing is, it's more important about how we reskill ourselves. Maybe something is very good from an organization point of view. From a human perspective, it may not be. So we need to really reskill the people. We need to see where there are gaps, actual gaps in understanding, or there are process gaps which can be fulfilled by the GenAI in a proper way. And then even reskill the people in the sense that there should be a continuous process training across. As far as our organization is concerned, the ticketing tool where customers raises a complaint, we have automated it. That was the only thing which we have done. The impact had been that mean time to response reduced to 35 minutes. That's a better way to go about it. But yes, we will have to see in a long term how do we generate, because we don't have a clear-cut picture as on date.
Thank you, Rishi. So with that, we come to the end of our session. So I thank all the panelists for sharing their inputs, and I would also like to thank all of you to have participated in this session. So unfortunately, we don't have enough time for a Q&A session. So we'd like to invite you. You are free. Please feel free to reach out to any of the panelists if you have any specific questions. We'll be able to address it. Thank you, everyone.